What we're going to talk about here, I'm sure, if history is able to be written accurately in the future, will be noted as one of the most insane acts of corruption and just absurdity by a U.S. president in American history. Let me play this clip. Think about this. During a Diwali celebration, Trump goes, all right, here's how I'm going to honor Diwali. Here's how I'm going to celebrate. We'll have the thing there, but then I'm going to start ranting about whatever the heck tariffs or elections or whatever. But then he gets asked about reporting. I should probably read it to you before showing you his reaction. That I thought nothing could get to me, how numb I am to Trump's actions, but this one got to me. Trump said to demand Justice Department, this is from the New York Times, pay him $230 million for past cases. So let me translate. You and me, our tax dollars will go to paying Trump, not the office of the presidency, not anything else. Pay the individual Donald J. Trump because he was wronged so badly in being prosecuted on the federal level. As people, especially during the government shutdown, are suffering and Trump's policies are failing, we thought the symbolism of the White House being, or part of it being destroyed, was a crazy contrast. But him taking away, saying we just think about this. We just don't have money for Medicaid. Sorry, we just don't. We got to tighten our belt. Even though we are fine adding a bunch of the debt with our rich tax cuts, but we got to tighten the belt. Oh, but we do have $230 million sitting around to give to Trump. Senior department officials who were defense lawyers for the president and those in his orbit are now in jobs that typically must approve any such payout, underscoring potential ethical conflicts, as if they'll care. They're thinking about paying him $230 million, but maybe the ethics will get in the way. Now, of course, he's saying this would be justified. He's denying that he's demanding this. We know he is. He's saying this would be justified because he had to spend all this money in his defense and these were bogus cases. But remember, the federal cases were the strongest. They were the strongest, the most legitimate. And if we were a sane country, Trump would have actually been punished legally and fully held accountable legally. But they fell apart because he took over the federal government. And so we're going to essentially, as taxpayers, pay him because he broke the law. And then watch his reaction to this. Again, it's supposed to be celebrating Diwali. Here's where it goes.
You're just very good.
To follow up on her question to you, because the New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you. Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity or something. I would give it to charity anyway. But look, what they did, they rigged the election. And as you know, we had, in one case, 60 Minutes had to pay us a lot of money. George Sloppidopoulos had to pay us a lot of money, and they already paid. They paid me a lot of money.
Keep Sloppy out of this.
Because what they did was wrong. And
while we continue to do this, we have a lot to talk about in this segment. Please do, if you appreciate this show. In these crazy times, we don't know what's ahead. We just don't. But what we do know is we have each other. And if you'll express that by clicking the subscribe button, I'd appreciate you greatly.
When somebody does what's wrong. Now, with the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And, that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? But I was damaged very greatly, and any money that I would get, I would give to charity.
Yeah, you remember whenever what was it? I was going to say something, but I don't have the facts aligned enough, so I won't say it. But do we trust he would give it to charity? The guy who is infamous for not paying bills, not even in relation to something you would just out of the kindness of your heart give to charity, but to people he was obligated to pay, workers who had done the work they were contracted to do, and he was infamous for ripping them off. We trust that guy will give it to charity. Plus, hey, I have a solution. What if we just don't do this whole exchange at all? In a time when you're saying we don't have money for basic health care. What if we use those funds on something like that? Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. And then he says, well, I have nothing to do with that. It would have to go across my desk, though. That's kind of funny. No, it wouldn't. I don't think that's true, actually. Now, in the world you're in, where your DOJ is not independent at all anymore, yeah, you're admitting that accidentally. But that's not how it should operate. And this probably will happen. Maybe the outrage will cause it not to, but we are going to pay him as taxpayers. And if he does get paid, I hope he does give it to charity. But we're going to pay him because he committed crimes, tried to overturn election and kept classified documents and obstructed the investigation. Unbelievable. Then you have this from the same presser.
Or really, I think it's got to be handled in a proper way. If it's not handled in a proper way, we don't want it to happen again. We can never let what happened in the 2020 election happen again. We just can't let that happen. And so the way we go, I know Cash is working on it, everybody's working on it, and certainly Tulsi's working on it. We can't let that happen again to our country. Look at what's happened, where you have millions of people being allowed to come into our country, all because of a crooked election, where they come from prisons, they come from jails, they come from mental institutions and insane asylums, they're drug dealers. The people that they've allowed to come into our country.
Imagine, let's see here, you get an invitation from whitehouse.gov. Look at these folks here. I don't know, maybe they're pro-Trump. I don't know who they are or if they come from a particular Trump-associated org, but maybe they're just random peeps who were invited to come to this. The President of the United States would like to invite you to celebrate Diwali in the Oval Office. Wow, what an opportunity, of course. And then you get stuck standing there in the background as he's like, the 2020 election was so rigged. They're coming from jails. They're coming from... You're like, oh gosh, what have I got myself into? Now, are we supposed to not be concerned that he says we can never let what happened in 2020 happen again, meaning he lost? I know Cash is working on it. Tulsi's working on it. We just can't let that happen again. Seems suspicious to me. Then at a different presser, you had him pontificating on which terminology he finds most appropriate for drugs coming from the ocean. The mermaid drugs.
And drug usage is way down, and drug usage coming from the sea, they call it ocean drugs, a little term that they use, the ocean drugs, is very close to non-existent right now. I wouldn't want to be in one of those boats heading away. You know, they're driving happily to destroy the lives of people, and they end up, that's the end of them. So the ocean drugs and the sea drugs, drugs by sea they call it also, that's...
What? They also call it wave drugs. They call them all sorts of things. Yeah, so what he's referencing there is his extrajudicial killing of people without providing any information to Congress or the public. We don't know what they know about these boats. And then Trump will make jokes about, I won't even like to be a fisherman right now, alluding to the fact that they maybe will make an accident and just strike a fishing boat. And it's a dangerous situation without due process. But remember, it's supposed to be a message of no tolerance on drugs in the United States. And while you can really want to address that while also not wanting us to violate our Constitution and not provide people due process and potentially kill innocent people, as we've gotten stories of these irresponsible strikes indeed ending in, you also have to remind yourself that this is a big show of force, but it's not systemically addressing the problem that we all should care about, which is minimizing dangerous drugs in the United States and thus overdose deaths. So remember that under Biden, finally we saw the trend reverse of overdoses year over year declining. It'd been up each year, and finally year over year declined. So this is Reuters, driven at least in part by widespread availability of the overdose antidote naloxone. There is little sign that the drug trade itself, though, is drying up. The total amount of drugs seized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection so far this year was up about 6% from last year, but the number of people charged with importing drugs in the United States dropped about 6% this year to the lowest point in at least 25 years. The number of people charged in drug conspiracies fell about 15%. So the question is why? There was a hopeful trend at the end of Biden's presidency. A lot of progress still had to be made. But Trump, who's doing literally unconstitutional things in the name of drug enforcement and preventing all of these deaths because of drugs, fentanyl, getting in the country, is actually, from initial signs we'll see, failing on the more systemic solutions. Why? Because he's allocating so many resources to immigration enforcement to grab just random people who haven't been criminal in any other way other than being in the country illegally. So many resources are going to that, which is exactly what's cited by people within these parts of the government. Speaking to Reuters, they're then not able to proceed with addressing some of these conspiracies. Despite Trump's promise to take a tougher approach to drug enforcement, even higher priority cases have stalled as a result, four officials familiar with the case told Reuters. One prosecutor said a fentanyl investigation he had supervised was at a standstill because the agents who were leading it had been ordered to focus on deportations instead. And so the big problem here isn't actually the boats, but the land ports of entry. And to prevent these broader drug conspiracies and trafficking operations, you would have to allocate the proper resources to that. And so much is going to the immigration, which is not the source of the drugs again in the country, despite them lying about that, that enforcement on the thing that Trump is using to justify these actions is impeded. Really think about that. Because it's going to keep coming up that anything Trump does, however against the law or however dangerous, is justified by the scope of the drug problem, which is real. But then when you contextualize it with his obsession with artificially juicing up deportation numbers, even if it's doing nothing to improve people's lives, improve communities, etc., and it's just about the raw numbers, and that's causing our enforcement of the actual drug trafficking to be minimized, then the entire argument falls apart. And I think that should be, when people talk about this, a part of the response, so that people understand, regardless of how much you care about the problem they're citing, you can still stand on principle against unconstitutional military actions. But especially when you care about it deeply and you hate the fact that Trump is deprioritizing the correct actions on that front, then it's all the more outrageous. So, in stressful times like this, we need our hobbies. Pete Hegseth is making hype videos
in dresses
of himself being flown around in a jet by a pilot, which is funny because it's supposed to look like he's flying the plane. He's not. I'm guessing he's not. I think he's in the back seat, and the guy in the front seat's the one flying, or the woman. You wanted to get worse? Fox News posted, Top Gun mode. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth hits the skies in a fighter jet. The chairman and I felt the need for speed with Top Gun at Naval Air Station Fallon. Hey, I don't care. Hey, focus on something else. Then Don Jr. was on TV. Again, it's just, think about the outrage if liberals, which some of them do, but imagine if I spoke about MAGA like Don Jr. is about to speak about liberals. How angry and dehumanized MAGA would feel.
Watching these people dress up like clowns and they expect to be taken seriously, it's truly laughable, but that is the state of the Democrat Party. They're radical.
Sorry, I haven't got to the... I don't, it's kind of like when people would just say, Kamala, 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 and you're like, it's Kamala. It's not a big deal, but like, why don't you just say it right? I don't get it. Same thing, it's the Democratic Party. That's the name of the party. There is a name and that's it. The Republic Party. Like, imagine if it's just weird. It's not insulting. There's nothing. Why do you say Democrats Party? It's just the Democratic Party. That's the name of it. And then the Democrats are in the Democratic Party. So tiny and so annoying. Just a little gnat right here. Just a little.
Is the state of the Democrat Party. They're radical, terrorist, violence-preaching lunatics. And you can see it. Right on the screen right now, Sean.
Listen,
no one can describe it any better than just watching them, stupefy themselves.
What's the name? He said, these are radical, terrorist, violent, preaching lunatics. You can see it on the screen right now. Let me just read it again. Look on the screen. Just look. They're radical, terrorist, violent, preaching lunatics. You can see it on the screen right now. So let's look on the screen right now. That's really aggressive. That's really aggressive for a bunch of peaceful protesters saying we don't want an authoritarian regime. And then he also said this lie again.
They're getting desperate, and so they're resorting to violence. They're doing this. When they say in those same talking points I was talking about earlier that it's violence on both sides. No, it's not, Sean. There is no violence from the right. It is not both sides. It is from one side, and it was from the left.
I'm done even getting mad about it. I got more mad about the Democratic Party thing. I'm just done. I'm done getting mad about it. It's just weird. I don't know who you're doing that for. I guess the audience. Imagine if I said there is no violence coming from the left at all. Ever. It's just kind of... thank you for proving you're just willing to say things that aren't true. It's just weird for you. I don't know why you're comfortable putting yourself in that position. I'm done caring that you're willing to say that stuff. But why do you want the whole world to know you would say something that's obviously not true? Who, as one example, not to use the more recent ones, but just why did Trump have to pardon those people then? Like, just what were all those pardons for about that event that one time? Nothing? They were Antifa. Well, then why did he pardon them? And then just to keep checking in on Fox News, you have Josh Hawley here and Laura Ingraham saying, oh, the liberals don't like the White House renovations and tearing down the East Wing? Well, what if we put up a statue of Robert E. Lee? Then,
Didn't the Clintons sell out the Lincoln bedroom? And I remember all those stories, what they did when they were there. I mean, Bill Clinton treated it like what is his bedroom, right? Every office was his actual personal bedroom.
Yeah, Bill Clinton did a lot of things in the White House. I tell you, among other things that they did, though, is they did absolutely raise campaign money on it. They sold out the Lincoln bedroom, pimped it out, you might say, to their donors and other people. Nothing that the Clintons say is credible, and nothing that the libs say is credible. They're talking about, we have to preserve this wonderful institution. Once again, let's remember, these people burned whole cities to the ground, Laura, when they had a political disagreement with somebody else. These people don't believe in institutions. They don't believe in history. All they believe in is power. In this case, they can't stand that the people put Donald Trump in power, and now they're just throwing a fit like they are with the government shutdown and everything else. It's ridiculous, and Trump is doing the right thing. I can't wait to see the ballroom finish.
Well, I think if he really wants to get them completely, just losing their minds, he should have a whole statuary garden and bring back Robert E. Lee to the statuary garden, right?
Stop it, Laura. Oh my gosh. Laura, you're a little trickster. Oh my gosh. And you made a reference to Bill Clinton and his sexual adventures. Wow. This is a real bombshell night. They always do that. They're like, Bill Clinton. You heard of that? Yeah. Gross. What? And what does that have to do with the, I guess it desecrated the office? Okay. All right, cool. Did you like that? No? Okay. So then why does that make this good? Now again, renovations are fine. There's a particularly stark contrast we're witnessing where while you've heard it. I can't say it again. I've said it so many times. While he's terrible for the working class, he's making himself a bougie ballroom. It's a symbolism.
Robert E. Lee to the statuary garden, right? They had really put them to, not in an early grave. We want everyone to be healthy and happy, but the history, okay, let's do history. Let's put them all back, all the statues back.
Josh likes it. First of all, she almost said putting up Robert E. Lee would put the liberals in an early grave. That's excessive. Second of all, I've watched a lot of Laura Ingraham, unfortunately, for this job. I have never heard her laugh this authentically.
Really put them to, not statuary garden and bring back Robert E. Lee to the statuary garden, right? They had really put them to,
I've never heard her laugh that real. That was a real laugh. She really was tickled by that idea. Okay, so let me get this straight. Libs don't like Trump's ballroom because it feels like a let them eat cake moment. I know that didn't really happen, but... And so the way that you'll really own them is honoring the guy who fought for slavery in your face. It's like, why do they keep calling us... I'm sick. And I get it. You should never call someone racist if they're not. But I'm sick of people calling us racist and Confederates. You know what we should do to prove them wrong? Put up Robert E. Lee. Just really make them suck on it. I'll put them in an early grave. All right. What is wrong? We're off the deep end, ladies and gentlemen.